going to go over a few problems from the Unit 4, Worksheet 5, starting with number 1. It says Aubrey can wash all the windows of a retail store in 6 hours. Maxwell can wash all the windows of the same store in 9 hours. So part A, write an equation that can be used to find the time in hours it would take Aubrey and Maxwell to wash all the windows of the retail store together. So each person has a rate at which they work. So for Aubrey, she can wash the windows of a retail store in 6 hours. So in 1 hour, she's done 1/6 of the job. So 1/6 of the job in 1 hour. And Maxwell, he takes 9 hours to do the whole job, so in 1 hour he's only done 1/9 of the job. And that's in 1 hour. Now if we say Aubrey works 2 hours, then she's done 2/6 of the job, where Maxwell has done 2/9 of the job. So if they've worked T hours, then Aubrey has done T, we use capital T, T over 6 of the job, whereas Maxwell has done T over 9. That's the fraction of the job that he's done, and they're working together. So we take how much work Aubrey's done plus how much work Maxwell's done, and we want the whole job to be done. So we want the fraction to be equal to 1. And so that's our equation, and then part B asks us to solve the equation for T that you wrote in part A. I'm going to get a common denominator. 6 is 3 times 2, 9 is 3 times 3, and so you see they both already have a 3. One needs a 2 and one needs a 3, so 18 is our least common multiple here, and so I'm going to multiply by 3 on the left hand side, 3 over 3, and then multiply the right side, the right fraction, by 2 over 2. And I'm going to multiply the 1 by 18 over 18. And that gives us 3t over 18 plus 2t over 18 is equal to 18 over 18. 3t plus 2t is 5t, so we get 5t over 18 equals 18 over 18. So we have a fraction equal to a fraction. Denominators are equal to each other, therefore we can set the numerators equal to each other, that 5t is equal to 18, and then solve by dividing by 5. And so here we go, 18 over 5, and our units are hours. If we want, we can change this to a mixed fraction. 5 goes into 18 3 times with a remainder of 3, so 3 and 3/5 of an hour is our answer. Let's now take a look at number 3. A group of friends decide to evenly divide the $72 cost of watching a premier boxing match on pay-per-view TV. Initially there are X friends, But then 3 friends decide not to watch the boxing match and spend their money to see Star Wars Episode 23, The Never-Ending Force, at the movie theater instead. This causes each remaining friend to have to pay $2 more. So, create an equation that represents the situation and can be used to solve for x. So, there's kind of a before and an after effect on this problem. So let's look at the before. So originally, there are x friends, and the cost, there are x friends splitting the cost of $72 to watch this boxing movie. So, so before it cost each person $72 divided by x. That's how much money each person was planning on paying when there were x friends. But 3 friends decided not to watch. So after that decision was made, the people that were still watching that pay-per-view premier boxing match, it cost each person $72 divided by x minus 3. And so you have 3 friends that left, and so each person's going to pay a little bit more. So this value, the original value, each person was going to pay a little bit less, but because the 3 friends left, now each person's going to pay a little bit more. How much more? Well, it tells us in the problem that each is going to pay $2 more. Okay, and so I'd like to create an equation as part A that helps us solve for x. So I'd like to set 72 over x equal to 72 over x minus 3, but they're not equal, right? The first value is less than the second value, and the difference between the values is $2. So if I add $2 to the lesser value, it's going to equal the greater value, or I could subtract $2 from the greater value to make it equal to the lesser value. So I'm gonna add 2 here. So the original cost plus $2 per person. So the original cost per person plus $2 equals the new cost per person. Now, so that's part A. Part B, we are going to solve that. And so each fraction, the first fraction I'm going to multiply by x minus 3 over x minus 3. The second fraction I'm going to multiply by x times x minus 3 over x times x minus 3. And the last fraction I'm going to multiply by x over x. And we end up with 72 times x minus 3 over x times x minus 3 plus 2 times x minus 3 over x times x minus 3, and that's equal to 72x over x times x minus 3. The first 2 fractions we can add because they have a common denominator. we get 72. I'm going to distribute the 72. So 72x minus 216 plus 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. And all that's over x times x minus 3. And that's equal to 72x over x times x minus 3. So we have one fraction equal to one fraction. Denominators match. Therefore we can say the numerators will have to match. So 72x minus 216 plus 2x squared minus 6x is equal to 72x. Notice we have some excluded values here. X cannot equal 0, which would make sense, have 0 friends, and x cannot equal x cannot equal 3, which again makes sense because if 3 friends decide not to watch the boxing match and there were originally 3 friends, then nobody would be watching that boxing match. So we need to, when we get our answer, make sure it's not 0 or 3. I noticed that we got 72x on both sides of the equation. I'm going to subtract the 72x and rewrite or rearrange the 2x squared first minus 6x minus 216 equals 0. Factor out of 2. And we get x squared minus 3x minus 108 equals 0. And then look to factor this. And I'm looking for numbers that multiply to 108. The two numbers that multiply to 108 and add to negative 3. So to help me think through this, I'm going to think of factors of 108. What times what is 108? 108 is even, so 2 times something, 2 times 54, that's even as well, so 2 times 27, and 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. So 108 is 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. And then we look for, different combinations of numbers, but we're looking for two numbers that differ by 3. So if we go 2 times 2 times 3, that would be 4 times 3, which is 12, and 3 times 3 gives us 9. Those are 3 away from each other. Sorry, this should be a negative 108. So if we do negative 12 and positive 9, those multiply to negative 108 and add to negative 3. So this factors further to 2 times x minus 12 times x plus 9. Remember, x represents how many friends were originally going to watch this show together. And so the 2 does not give us any answer. That gives us nothing. But the x minus 12, you set that equal to 0, and that gives us x equals 12. So there could have been 12 friends. If you set x plus 9 equal to 0 and solve, you get x equals negative 9. But that doesn't make too much sense in this problem because you're not going to have negative 9 friends. And so 12 friends is our answer. Skip down to number 7. Jools' law states that P equals E squared over R, where P is the power in watts, E is the voltage in volts, and R is the resistance in ohms. Solve this equation for E. So P equals E squared over R, and well, a couple ways to do this, but I'll kind of keep it the same way I've been doing stuff in this unit. I'm going to get a common denominator. I'm going to multiply the left side by R over R, and so we got two fractions that are equal to each other, same denominator, so we can set the numerators equal to each other. So we get P times R is equal to E squared. Notice that R cannot equal 0. And I want to solve for E, so I'm going to switch things around. I got E squared equals P times R. Take the square root of both sides, and we get the absolute value of E is equal to the square root of P times R. So E equals positive or negative square root of P times R. Now E represents the voltage in volts, and here we have our equation. Number 9, consider the rational equation 1 over R equals 1 over X plus 1 over Y. Solve this equation for R. So I'm going to work towards a common denominator. I'm going to multiply the first fraction by xy over xy, second fraction by ry over ry, and third fraction by rx over rx. So the last two fractions have a common denominator. I can add them, and I get xy over rxy is equal to ry plus rx over rxy. We have a fraction equal to a fraction, denominators match, so we can set our numerators equal to each other and get, I'm going to switch things around here, ry plus rx is equal to xy. The next step is an important one to see, and we're going to factor out an r. And we have r times y plus x is equal to xy. And then divide by y plus x, and you end up with r is equal to xy over x plus y. And that's the last one I'm going to go over for this worksheet.